What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Boring Money Show. It's your boy, Mr. Boring Money, and today we're going to be talking about the importance of knowing your numbers as an investor. If you don't know your numbers as an investor, you are just gambling. Straight up gambling, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, what I want to do is clearly communicate that this is not financial advice by any means whatsoever. All I'm doing is sharing what's worked for me, some of the investment principles that I've learned over the years, and this is for pure entertainment purposes. If you're seeking financial advice, or if you have issues with your own portfolio, seek a financial advisor, somebody who's licensed and who's qualified to be able to meet you at your unique needs. This is just for educational purposes and entertainment purposes only. Now, the importance of actually knowing your numbers is critical because it guides you and helps you make informed decisions. In every business that I've been, the ones that have been the most successful have been the ones where we made data-driven decisions because we were so meticulous about tracking data. Same thing applies to investing. You have to know your numbers. You need to know when you need to cut your losses. You need to know when you need to take profits. You need to understand what are you working towards, what are your goals, what are your milestones, and what is your risk tolerance. And then you also need to know what is your annual rate of return that you need to get for an investment opportunity to make sense to you. For me, when it comes to the blockchain, I need minimum 25% annual rate of return just to maintain buying power. So when I'm analyzing an opportunity on the blockchain, I'm like, if it doesn't produce more than 25%, it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm looking at the same thing when I'm looking at a potential business to invest in. If it doesn't produce more than 25% annual rate of return, it just doesn't make any actual sense. The other nice thing about knowing your numbers is it keeps you safe. It keeps you safe and it keeps you from being distracted. Now, the cool thing about that is I know what my annual rate of return is on the blockchain. I also know what my annual rate of return needs to be when I'm deploying capital inside of real estate. I'm personally shooting to get minimum 20% cash on cash return. Now, that's pretty difficult to do, but that's what my own requirements are. If I'm taking money off the blockchain, I have to pay short-term capital gains tax. So I have to factor in the taxes that I'm paying into what my annual rate of return needs to be for it to make sense if I'm going to take money off chain and roll it into a hard asset. So the nice thing, if you don't know your numbers, you are going to get wrecked. If you don't know when you should start taking profits, if you don't know when you need to cut your losses, like you're going to get wrecked. All right. And I've already experienced this. I've experienced some catastrophic losses on the blockchain because I let greed take over. I let greed cause me to not stick to my fundamental principles that I had set prior. I knew when I needed to exit a position, but because I got greedy, I was like, it's going to keep going up and going up. And I started to extrapolate what my future returns would look like instead of just being disciplined and taking the profits and locking in the results that I already got. Right. So not only do you need to know your numbers, but you actually need to be disciplined about sticking to your numbers and sticking to the plan. And I can speak so clearly to this because I've lost a lot of money being undisciplined when it came to investing. And those losses make me so much more conservative when I'm building a plan, when I'm sitting on a strategy session with a potential client. Last week, I sat down with a potentially new client. We had an investment strategy session, and we looked at the numbers as far as like what I'm personally looking to get. And we build our strategy off worst case scenario, what I know I can get on a blockchain. Worst case scenario right now, I know I can get 35% cash on cash return on my money on the blockchain. So if I put $100,000 in, I'm going to be able to produce $35,000 in revenue on the blockchain. So for me, I build all my strategies around that. Now things could change, and let's say the landscape of the blockchain changes and expected returns are not going to be as high. There's lots of different things that can happen, but I know right now that's what I can guarantee myself, and that's what I build all of my strategies off of. Granted, right now I am getting 59%, but I don't build my strategy off getting 59% because that's not going to last forever. I build it off the 35%, and then everything over and above that gets reinvested and compounded aggressively to build my cash position so I can do other things and fund other projects that I want to focus on. So knowing your numbers is not just important for a business owner, but it's important for an investor. Yeah, you have to know your risk tolerance. You have to know the rate of return that you need for an opportunity to make sense to you. And then you also have to know when to take profits. You also have to know, like, okay, at which point, if I'm looking at a specific asset, if I'm looking at an ecosystem on the blockchain, I'm looking at these different exchanges and things like that. What are the volume numbers that I need to see? What are the asset numbers that I need to see? How much liquidity does this platform need to have for it to make sense for me to put my money in it? What's going on? I wanted to take this time to quickly interrupt this video or this podcast. If you found this helpful and you're interested in getting started investing on the blockchain, we have an incredible program called the Born Money System inside of our Wealth Sanctum. What we do is we'll guarantee you'll produce cash flow within the first 30 days of setting up your first digital cash flowing real estate on the blockchain, or you don't pay. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link somewhere in the show notes for you to be able to apply and schedule a free strategy session where we can look at your portfolio, look at your financials, and figure out what would be the best and most efficient way to deploy capital on the blockchain to guarantee cash flow. Hope to see you on the inside. Back to the show. All right. Knowing your numbers keeps you safe and keeps you from getting wrecked. I've experienced getting wrecked because I didn't stick to the fundamentals and because I didn't stick to the discipline. So I just don't want anybody who's listening, don't get caught up in hype. Don't get caught up in sensational headlines. Don't get caught up in euphoria, and don't get caught up in greed, right? Learn basic principles so that you understand what it looks like for you to deploy capital safely based on what you bias, right? What do you want out of your investments? What do you want out of your life? And what are the rate of returns that you need to get to where you want to be and to ultimately get what you want out of your life? So understanding these things about yourself, and then understanding like when you need to cut your losses, when it makes sense to deploy capital in an opportunity, what your rate of return needs to be on that. And then also knowing what you're going to do with the returns and having scenarios like if this, then that, right? For me, for example, right now, I told our community, as soon as the bear market hit, I said, the strategy that I was utilizing during the bull market is radically different. Here's how. Right now, top 10 assets on the blockchain are on discount. So what I'm doing is cash flow that I'm producing with these assets here, my money printers, they're being rolled into dollar cost averaging into any top 10 asset. If it's in the top 10 on like coin market cap, I'm taking some of my cash, I'm rolling it into those things. Why? Because it's safer to deploy capital in those types of assets right now because they're at such a discount, right? And I was telling some people this and they didn't listen. They were too afraid, right? And now guess what? There's been a mini rally because I knew what I needed to do with my cash flow at any given point. I was able to strategically deploy capital into assets that I've identified that I want to be putting capital in. And now because of this mini rally this year, I have seen a 85% return on my assets and I'm taking profits now. I was like, I already preset before I made the decision. I told everybody in our community, hey, these are the assets that I'm looking at. This is how the strategy for the bear market is shifted. And this is how I'm playing the game. This is what I'm doing my cash flow. These are the assets that I'm building. This is going to be the point where I take profits. When Ethereum hits this point, this price point, right? If it's early, if I'm suspecting there's going to be an early rally at the beginning of 2023, if that rally's confirmed and it hits this point, I'm starting to take profits. I don't care. I'm taking risk off the table. All right, because I've already learned my lesson about being greedy. All right, I was like, if Bitcoin gets an early rally and it goes from 15,000 to 18 and 20,000, I'm taking some profits. I don't care. Right. And so because I have my numbers and I've done my due diligence to understand what I bias, to understand what I look for, to understand what's my risk tolerance, what types of assets I need, what my annual rate of return is, and at which point I'm going to be taking profits, it makes what I'm doing so much safer because I'm not gambling, right? And if you don't have those numbers mapped out, you are just straight up gambling, right? And I had to learn. I still have mentors to this day that give me feedback that I can act as a soundboard for me to share my analysis and share my idea, get their inputs and help me look at things from a different perspective. So this wasn't something that I taught myself. I learned it from people. I learned it from a range of people, gathered as much information as I could, and then created my own thesis on what makes sense for me based on my situation. So it's one of those things where if you're considering investing in any asset, honestly, get a mentor, right? If you're considering getting into real estate, I hired a mentor for real estate to show me what best ways to analyze deals, tools, and what are the things that I can expect, because I wanted to start taking cash flow from the blockchain and using it to build my real estate portfolio. First thing I did was hire a mentor, right? When I wanted to start getting into crypto, hired a mentor. When I wanted to build my business and start it, hired a mentor, because unless I know the industry, I can't create my biases and I can't build like my principles and build my fundamentals and my framework. So what I need to do in the beginning is pretty much act like a child and be dependent on the information that those who know more provide me. And then I can test that information in the real world and then let the feedback, the experience that I get and the data that I gather from actually implementing the guidance that I get from my mentors, let that inform whether or not I should continue to adopt this way of thinking or this philosophy, or if I need to make adjustments in real time. But now, because I have a framework from them, I can put it to the test, gather the data, analyze it, make the necessary adjustments, and then repeat. All right. So one of the things going to help you is like just knowing who to trust, learning from people that know more about you, and paying to acquire information, because we've already discussed this. Knowledge and proximity are two things that allow you to buy time and dramatically increase your rate of return in ways that you couldn't do it if you were trying to figure it out on your own. All right, so I hope you found this helpful. Remember, stay calm, print money, and enjoy life and business on your terms. So next time, deuces. If you found this video helpful, chances are you're gonna find a ton of value in our Boring Money community, where I'm in there live, actively sharing articles, market updates, and just educating you on what's going on in the market real time. So if you don't want to wait for another one of these episodes or another video training to come out, and you want to have live updates on what's happening in the market, go ahead and join the Boring Money community, where you can have access to us and be able to ask any questions that you want, and potentially even get featured in an episode. Till next time, hope to see you on the inside.